of being earnest.
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
No, I'm sorry for that, for your sake.
Yes, sir.
Have you the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir. Fresh from the market.
Yeah. Thank you, Lane. By the way, I see from your book that on last Thursday, when Lord Shorman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint. Thank you very much, sir.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne?
Well, I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely the first-rate brand.
Good heavens, is marriage so demoralizing as that?
Well, I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have very little experience with the subject myself. I've only been married once, and that was as a consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and the young person.
I don't know that I'm much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir, it's not a very interesting subject. I rarely think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That'll do, Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders aren't setting us a good example, what on earth is the use of them?
Mr. Earnest Worthing.
No. Ernest! My dear boy, how are you?
Very well.
I'm not bringing you up to town.
Pleasure, pleasure. What else is bringing anywhere? Eating yet again, I see.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
Well, one is in town. One amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Neighbours. Neighbours.
Got nice neighbours in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
Well, how immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Oh, Shropshire. It's a delightful place. What's with all the plates, the cups, and the cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one circle? Who's coming to tea?
So merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that's all very well, but I don't think Aunt Augusta would quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolen is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolen flirts with you.
I'm in love with Gwendolen. I've come up to town expressly to propose to her.
Propose? I thought you'd come up for pleasure. I call that business.
Utterly unromantic you are.
No, I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It's very romantic to be in love, yes, but there's nothing romantic in a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. Then the excitement's all over. No, the very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I had get married, I certainly would try and forget the fact.
I've no doubt about that, dear Algie. Divorce courts were specially invented for people whose memories were so curiously constituted.
Well, divorces are made in heaven. Please don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're all especially for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you've been scoffing them all the time.
That's quite a different matter. It's my aunt. That's the bread and butter. The bread and butter's for Gwendolen. Gwendolen is devoted to bread and butter.
And very good. Bread and butter, I'm sure it is too.
Well, you needn't eat it like you're going to eat the whole thing. You act as if you're married already. You're not married already. And I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
My dear fellow, in the first place, women never marry the men they flirt with. And in the second place, I don't give my consent.
your consent.
I think you forget that Gwendolen is my first cousin. And before I allow you to marry her, we'll have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean by Cecily? I know no one of the name Cecily. What on earth do you mean, Algie, by Cecily?
Lane, bring me that cigarette case that Mr. Worthing left in the drawing room the last time he dined with you.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to tell me you've had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you'd let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Oh, well, I wish you would offer one. Thank you, Lane. I happen to be more than usually hard up. Well, it makes no matter. For now I read the inscription inside. I see it's not yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times. You've no right whatsoever to read what's written inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
It's ridiculous to have a hard and fast rule about what one should and what one shouldn't read.
It's not the sort of thing one should discuss in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this is not your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. And you just said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells.
Why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. Surely that is a matter that an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that all aunts should be just like your aunt, which is absurd. And second, give me back my cigarette case.
Yes, but why does your aunt call you her dear uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love, from her dear Uncle Jack. There's no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You've always said it was Ernest. You answered to the name of Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You're the most earnest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It's perfectly absurd you're saying your name isn't Ernest. Look, it's on your cards. Here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I'll keep this as proof that your name is Ernest, if you ever attempt to deny it, to me, or to Gwendolen, or to anybody else.
Well, if you must know, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country. And the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Come on now, old boy, you better have the whole thing out at once.
Dear fellow, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist.
Now go on, tell me the whole thing. I may mention that I've always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret bunburyist. And now I'm quite sure of it.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me and us why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here you are. Now produce your explanation. And pray make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there is nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, far from being improbable, it is highly probable. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was yay big, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as uncle from motives of respect I very much doubt you could appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where is that place in the country?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. I may tell you candidly, the place is not in Shropshire, nor are you going to get an invite.
Oh, well, I suspected that. I've bunburyed all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, I don't think you'd be able to understand my true motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It is one's duty to do so. In order to get up to town, I've always pretended to have a younger brother of approximately the same height, who lives at my place in the Albany and gets in the most terrible scrapes. That, my dear Algie, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
Well, the truth is rarely pure and never simple. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was right in saying you're a Bunburyist. You're one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
Well, you have invented an invaluable younger brother in order that you may be able to come up to town whenever you choose. I have invented a permanent invalid called Bunbury in order that I may be able to go down into the country whenever I please. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. In fact, if it weren't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis's tonight. For I've been really engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't invited you to dine with me anyway.
I know, you're absurdly careless about sending out invitations.
You had much better time with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. She'll only sit me next to Mary Farquhar, and the way that woman flirts with her husband. It's perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It's merely washing one's clean linen in public. No, anyway, now that I know you to be a Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily is a little too much interested in him. That is becoming rather a bore. I strongly suggest, therefore, that once I've got rid of him, you get rid of your invalid friend with the absurd name.
Nothing would induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever do get married, which seems to me incredibly problematic, you'll be very happy to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
Gwendolen accepts me, which I certainly hope she does. And she is the only woman in my whole world that would marry me. I certainly want to know Bunbury.
Well, then your wife will.
For heaven's sake, don't try to be silly. It's preposterous.
Well, you know, there's such a lot of beastly competition about. That must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian manner. Anyway, if I can get her away in 10 minutes in order that you might have an opportunity for proposing to Gwendolen, might I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious. I hate it when people aren't serious about meals. It's so shallow.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. Yes, what's going on here? I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. Two things rarely go together.
Why? Well, you are smart.
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. That would leave no room for developments. I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry we're late, dear Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I haven't seen her since her poor husband died. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now, dear Algernon, I'll have one of those cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolen, won't you come and sit here?
Thanks, Mamma. I'm quite comfortable where I am, actually.
Good heavens, Lane! Why are there no cucumber sandwiches?
There were no cucumbers at the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir, not even for ready money.
Thank you, Lena.
Thank you, sir.
It makes no matter, Algernon. I had crumpets at Lady Harbury's, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
Certainly has changed colour. From what cause, I could not possibly say. And now, Algernon, I have a treat for you tonight. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar.
I'm greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, that I will not be able to have the pleasure of dining with you this evening. After all.
I hope not, Algernon. You put my table quite out. Your uncle will have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's quite used to that.
Well, it's a great bore. I need hardly say a terrible disappointment, but the fact is, I just had a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunby, yes, well, he's quite ill, again, and they seem to think I should be with him.
Yes, Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, he's a dreadful, dreadful invalid.
Well, I wish he could make up his mind whether he's going to live or die. And I must say to you, Algernon, I would ask you to beg him not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to do my music for me.
Well, to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he's still conscious, and I think I can promise you he'll be all right by Saturday. I'll run over the programme with you now, shall I? Oh, yes, if you'll kindly slip into the next room.
Very thoughtful, Algernon. I'm sure it'll be delightful with some expurgation.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. When people talk to you about the weather, I feel almost certain that they mean something else.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
Oh yes, I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back into a room suddenly that I have often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I first met you, I have found you more lovely than any woman I have ever met. Since I met you.
Oh yes, I am quite well aware of the fact. And I often wish that in public any of it would have been far more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. It has always been a dream of mine to love someone with the name Earnest. It is a name that inspires absolute confidence. In fact, when Algernon first told me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew that I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen.
Oh, passionately, darling.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
Oh, Ernest, my own Ernest.
But you don't mean to say you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know it is, but supposing it was something else, do you mean to tell me you couldn't love me then?
It's clearly a metaphysical speculation.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I've never much cared for the name Ernest. I don't think it suits me.
It suits you perfectly. It's a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibration.
Gwendolen, I must say, I think there are lots of other much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, charming.
Jack. No, there is no music in the name Jack. Oh, I pity any poor dear woman who is married to a man called Jack. The only truly safe name is Ernest.
Darling, I must get christened. We must get married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, you know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you were not entirely indifferent to me.
Darling, I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. The subject of marriage hasn't even been touched upon.
May I propose to you now?
Oh, I think that'd be an admirable opportunity. And to save you any possible disappointment, I feel I should tell you right now that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolen,
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what have you got to say to me?
you know what I have to say to you.
Yes, but you don't. Say it.
Gwendolen, will you marry me?
You've been about it, darling! Oh, but I'm afraid you have had no real practice
practice in how to propose.
My own one. I've never loved anyone in the world but you.
Oh yes, I know that, but some men propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. Yes, what wonderfully blue eyes you have. They are quite blue. I hope you will always look at me this way.
Mr. Worthing!
Present.
Mamma! Rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent position.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
Merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, you're nothing of the kind. When you do become engaged, either I or your father, should his health permit, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come upon a girl as a surprise, pleasant or otherwise, as the case may be. It's hardly a matter she can decide for herself. And now, Mr. Worthing, I'll put some questions to you, and while I'm doing that, you'll wait for me below the carriage.
Mamma!
The carriage, Gwendolen! The carriage, Gwendolen!
Certainly, Mamma.
You may be seated, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I am free to tell you you're not on my list of eligible young men, although I have the same list as the Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. But I'm prepared to add you, should your answers be those that a truly affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Oh, yes. I must admit, I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. All men should have some occupation. There are too many idle young men in London as it is. And what is your age?
If you can believe it, despite the greys, 29.
29. Well, it's a very good age to be married at. I think the man who desires to be married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady.
Very good. Ignorance should not be tampered with. It's a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. Luckily in England, at any rate, education has no effect, which is very fortunate because it would give rise to riots in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
7,000 a year. In land or investments?
In investments, chiefly.
Very good, very good.
I have a country house with some land attached, about 150 acres.
1,500 acres. Anyway, how many bedrooms? Never mind, as long as you have a townhouse. Because a simple, unspoiled girl like Gwendolen can hardly be expected to live in the country. Now then, what are your politics?
I'm afraid I really have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, they're Tories. They count as Tories. We dine with them. And your parents, are they living?
I have lost both my parents.
Ooh, to lose one parent is misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Well, who was your father?
I'm afraid I really don't know. I had said I lost my parents. It would be closer to the truth, Lady Bracknell, to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found. Late Mr. Thomas Cardew, a man of kindly and gentlemanly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
And where did this gentleman who had a ticket for a seaside resort find you?
In a handbag. Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was in a handbag, a somewhat large, black, leather handbag with handles attached to it. A rather ordinary handbag, in fact.
And in what locality was this ordinary handbag found?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given him in mistake for his own.
From the Victoria Station.
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial! I'm bewildered. I'm bewildered by what you've told me. To be born, at any rate, bred in a handbag, whether its handles or not. It puts one in mind of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And we all know what that movement led to.
Then I would appreciate very much if you could advise me what my best course of action would be. I need hardly tell you that I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolen's happiness.
You must find some relations as soon as possible, and a parent of either sex, before the season is quite over.
But I don't see how I can possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It's in my cloakroom at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What is it to do with me? You can hardly suppose that I, or Lord Bracknell, would allow our daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to be behaved into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. Oh, I am in trouble now. Algie, will you kindly not play that ghastly tune just yet? It's a little early.
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't need to say Gwendolen refused to.
Gwendolen is as right as a trivet. As far as she's concerned, we're engaged to be married. Her mother, on the other hand, never met such a gorgon. I imagine, unless we're very lucky, Gwendolen might turn out like her in about 150 years.
All women will turn out like their mothers. That's their tragedy. No man does. That's it.
Is that clever?
It's perfectly phrased. Quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be. By the way, did you tell Gwendolen the truth about you being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't the sort of thing one tells a nice, sweet, refined girl.
What about your brother? What about the profligate Earnest?
Oh, by the end of the week I should have got rid of him. I'll say he died suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a good deal?
Oh, that is all right. She's not a silly, romantic girl, I'm glad to say. She has a capital appetite and goes for long walks and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
Rather like to see this Cecily.
I will take very good care that you never do. She's excessively pretty and only just 18, and we all know what you're like.
Oh, well, have you told Gwendolen yet that you have an excessively pretty ward who's only just 18?
One doesn't blurt these things out to people. I bet you anything you like that within half an hour of them having met, Gwendolen and Cecily will be great friends, if not calling each other sister.
Ha! Women only do that when they've called each other a lot of other things first. Now, if we're going to make a good team at Willis's, we really must go and dress. I'm hungry.
Again, I never knew when you weren't.
Miss Fairfax.
Oh my word.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular I'd like to say to Mr. Merriman.
My own one.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the look on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. And though she may stop us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing that she could ever do could alter the eternal devotion that I have for you in my heart.
My own one.
Your romantic origins, as relayed to me by Mamma, with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibres of my being. Your town address at the Albany I have, but what is your address in the country?
A manor house, Walton, Hertfordshire.
Manor house, Walton, Hertfordshire. I'm going bunburying.
Sir?
Only make believe I love you. Only make believe that you love me. Others find peace of mind in pretending. Couldn't you? Couldn't I? Couldn't we make believe our lips are blending in a phantom kiss, or two or three? Might as well make believe I love you, or to tell the truth, I do. Your pardon I pray, 'twas too much to say, the words that betray my heart. Will you pretend you do not offend in playing a lover's part? The game of just supposing is the sweetest game I know. Our dreams are more romantic than the world we see. And if the things we dream about don't happen to be so, that is just an unimportant technicality. We could make believe I love you. We could make believe that you love me. Others find peace of mind in pretending. Couldn't you? Couldn't I? Couldn't we make believe our lips are blending in a phantom kiss, or two or three? Might as well make believe I love you, for to tell the truth. Ernest, you're handsome, deaf. I do.
Cecily, Cecily, your German grammar's on the table. Pray open it at page 15. We'll resume yesterday's lesson.
I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I'll have quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you must better yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German as he is leaving for town.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he's so serious that I think it can't be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health. His gravity of demeanour is to be especially commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one with a higher sense of duty or responsibility.
I suppose that's why he often looks over the board when we three are together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. You must remember his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man his brother to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I'm certain you would. You know German and geology and things of that kind influence a man very much.
I'm not sure I would have any desire to reclaim him. I'm not in favour of this modern mania for turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. Child, you must put away your diary. I see no need to keep one at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter all the wonderful secrets of my life. If I don't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary that we all carry about with us.
I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels.
Do not speak slightingly of 3-volume novels, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it didn't end happily. I don't like novels that end happily.
Well, The good ended happily, and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript was somewhat abandoned. I use the word in the sense of lost or mislaid.
Oh, I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Reverend Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are we this morning? Miss Prism, you are, I trust, well?
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
No, Miss Prism, I know that, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphor was drawn from these. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not returned from town yet.
We do not expect him until Monday afternoon.
Yes, he usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He's not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man, his brother, seems to be. I will not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letitia, Doctor.
A classical allusion, merely, drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
I think, dear Doctor, I will have a walk with you. I appear to have a headache after all, and a stroll might do it good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure.
Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational, even in the title.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He's brought his lunch with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B for the Albany W. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. You know, he seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden, and he says he's anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest to come up here. I suppose you'd better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he'll make me like everyone else.
You must be my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You're under some strange mistake. Not little. In fact, I believe I'm more than usually told my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest, my wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, you mustn't think me wicked. I'm not really wicked.
If you're not, then you've certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been leading a double line, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Well, of course I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
In fact, now you mention the subject, I have been very bad.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, but I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
Well, it is much pleasanter to be here with you, Cecily.
I can't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday afternoon.
Oh, that is a great disappointment. I'm obliged to go up to town, first train Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I'm anxious to miss.
Did you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment is in London.
Oh. Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement, if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life, but still, I think you'd better wait until Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to talk to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
Your emigrating? He's come up to buy your outfit.
I wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't see that by this. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you'd have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Oh, well, the accounts I've had of the next world and Australia are not particularly encouraging. No, this world is good enough for me, Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it? Oh, how thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life in this world, one requires regular and wholesome meals.
Thank you. But might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite without a buttonhole first.
Marital meal?
I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Oh, why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily. said such things to me.
Well then, Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You're the most beautiful girl I ever saw in my life.
Miss Prism says she looks for a snare.
They are a snare that any sensible man would like to get caught in.
I don't think you can catch a sensible man.
You are too much alone, dear Dr. Chasuble. You should get married.
The precept, as well as the practice of the primitive church, was distinctly against matrimony.
What you don't seem to realise, dear doctor, is that by remaining single, a man converts himself into a public temptation.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive except his wife.
Often I was told, not even to her. Oh.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the man. Maturity can be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. I would agree. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. Mr. Worthing.
Mr. Worthing?
This is indeed a surprise. We didn't expect you until Monday afternoon.
Well, I trust this garb of woe does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother.
Oh, more shameful deaths and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure.
Dead.
Your brother, Ernest, dead?
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust he'll profit by it.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I offer my sincere condolence.
Poor Ernest. He had his many faults, but it is a sad, sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad, in Paris, in fact. I had a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to drafts. Will the interment take place here?
No, he seems to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? I fear that hardly points to any very serious state of mind at the last.
Ah, that reminds me. Dr. Chasuble, you mentioned christenings, I think. I mean, you continually christen. You know how to christen all right.
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I've often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, but they don't seem to know what thrift is.
Is there any particular infant in whom you are interested, Mr. Worthing? Your brother was unmarried, I believe, was he not?
He grew live and tuck for pleasure, usually are.
Yes, but no, it is not for any child, dear doctor. I'm quite fond of children, but no. I'd like to be christened myself, actually, this afternoon, if you've nothing better to do.
Oh, but surely, Mr. Worthing, you've been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it.
Have you any great doubts on the subject?
I certainly intend to have. I mean, you don't think it's rather odd me being so old now?
Not at all. The immersion, as well as the sprinkling of adults, is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
You need have no apprehensions. Sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed, I think, advisable. Our weather is so changeable. What hour would you wish the ceremony performed?
I thought I might trot round about 5, if that would suit you.
Perfectly. In fact, I have 2 similar ceremonies to perform at that time. A recent case of twins that occurred recently on one of the outlying cottages of your own estate. Poor Jenkins the carter, a most hard-working man.
I don't think there'd be much point in me being christened along with other babies. That would be childish, you know? Would 5:30 do?
Admirably. Admirably. And now, dear Mr. Worthing, I will not intrude any longer into a house of sorrow.
Oh, Jack! Oh, I'm so pleased to see you back. What horrid clothes you've got on.
Cecily?
Change them.
My child.
What's the matter, Uncle Jack? You look happy. You look as if you have toothache. And I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think's in the dining room? Your brother.
Who?
Your brother Ernest. You're right about
What nonsense! I haven't got a brother.
Oh, do you say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he's still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out. And you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are very joyful tidings. But we had all been resigned to his loss. His sudden return seemed to
My brother is in the dining room. Don't know what it all means. I knew.
Brother Jack, I came down to say that I'm very sorry for the trouble I have been causing, and I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think he's coming down here perfectly disgraceful. He knows jolly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There's some good in everyone. Ernest just has been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury.
Oh, he's been talking about Bunbury, hasn't he?
Yes, tell me all about poor Mr. Bunbury in his terrible state of health.
It's enough to make one weak. But I won't have him talk to you about Bunbury or anything else. It's also enough to drive me perfectly frantic.
Of course, I admit that the faults were all on my side, but I think Brother Jack's coldness to me is peculiarly painful. I expected a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering this is the first time I've come here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me.
Never, never, never.
Then this is the last time I shall ever do it.
It's pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation? I think we'll leave the two brothers together. Cecily, you'll come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You young scoundrel, Algie. You must get out of this place as soon as possible. Wouldn't allow any bumbering here.
I've put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to your own, sir. I suppose that is all right.
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I have unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, 2 hat boxes, the entire works of Shakespeare written on a grain of rice, a spit-roasted horse, and a miniature piano that is somehow still as heavy as a regular piano, and a very large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can only stay a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Earnest here has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I've not been called back to town.
Yes, you have.
I haven't heard anybody call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures to the smallest degree.
I've no doubt.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that.
Why on earth did you go up and change, Jack? It's perfectly childish for you to be in deep mourning for a man who's really spending a whole week with you in your house as a guest. I quite protest.
You are certainly not staying with me for a whole week as a guest or a corpse or anything else. You have got to leave by the 4:05 train.
But I certainly won't leave you so long as you're in mourning.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, and you're not too long about it. Gosh, I never saw anyone take so long to dress and with such little result.
Well, it is better than being always overdressed, as you clearly are. This bumbering has not been a magnificent success for you.
I think it's been a great success. I am in love with Cecily, and that is everything.
I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's going to send me away. He's ordered the dog cart for me.
Then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. Parting is so painful.
It's always painful to part from people that one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can enjoy with equanimity.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
I hope, Cecily, that I shall not offend you if I state quite openly and plainly that you seem to me to be, in every way, the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you'll allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
You really keep a diary? I'd give anything to read it. May I?
Oh no. You say it's a simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you'll order a copy. But pray, so still, I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. Don't cough, Ernest, I don't know how to spell cough.
Cecily, ever since I set eyes on your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you, wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think that you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't make much sense, does it?
Cecily,
The dog cart is at the door, sir!
tell her to come round next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir!
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying until next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't give a fig about Jack. I don't care about anyone apart from you, Cecily. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, of course. Why, we've been engaged for the last 3 months.
The last 3 months.
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you of course have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
But when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last. Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other, and after a long struggle with myself, I accepted to enter this dear old tree here. The next day I bought this little ring in your name, and this is the little bangle with the true lover's knot I promised you 3 weeks ago.
Did I give you this? Oh, it is pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you wonderful ring. Please excuse my voice if you're leading such a bad life. And here is the box in which I kept your dear letters.
Oh, my letters! But my own sweet Cecily, I never wrote you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote always 3 times a week, sometimes oftener.
Oh, do let me read them, Cecily.
I couldn't possibly. They make you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after I'd broken off the engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last March. You can read the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
But why did you break it off, Cecily? What had I done? I had done nothing at all. Cecily, I very hurt indeed to hear you broke it off. Especially when the weather was so charming.
I'm really serious. Engagement had to be broken off at least once. So I forgave you before the week was out.
Oh, what a perfect angel you are.
You dear romantic boy. I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes, darling. With a little help from others. You'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily.
I don't think I could break it off now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there is much in your name.
Yes, of course. I didn't forget.
You mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it had always been a girlish dream of mine to love somebody whose name was Ernest. There was something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
But my dear, sweet Cecily, you don't mean to say you couldn't love me if I had some other name.
But what name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
So I don't like the name Algernon.
Well, my own dear, sweet, loving little darling, I can't see why you would object to the name of Algernon. Not at all a bad name. In fact, it's rather an aristocratic name. Half the chaps are getting to the bankruptcy court called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name were Algie, wouldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear I would not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here is, I believe, thoroughly practiced practice and all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh, yes, Dr. Chasuble is the most learned man.
I must see him at once on a very important christening. Very important business.
Oh,
I shan't be away for more than half an hour.
considering that we've been engaged since February the 14th, and that I only met you today for the first time, I think it's rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be as quick as I can.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I also took the rose in my diary.
The interval!
Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing. On very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Oh. Pray ask the ladies to come up here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax. I suppose she's one of the many good elderly women who are associated with Jack and some of his philanthropic work in London.
Miss Fairfax.
Let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Oh, Cecily. A very sweet name. I can tell already that we're going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure,
And you will always call me Gwendolen, will you not?
if you wish.
That is quite settled then, is it not?
I hope so.
Cecily, Mamma, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted, so would you mind if I looked at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolen. I'm very fond of being looked at.
We're here on a short visit, I suppose.
Oh, no, I live here.
Oh, really? Your mother, no doubt, or some other female relative of advanced years resides here also.
Oh, no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Indeed.
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I'm Mr. Worthing's ward.
He never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I am bound to state, however, Cecily, that the words that you told me does not fill me with feelings of unmixed delight. I'm very fond of you, Cecily. I've liked you from the moment I met you, but now that I know that you're Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help but just express a wish that you were just, well, just like a little older than you seem to be and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I could speak with perfect candour, Cecily.
I think that when everyone has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well, to speak with perfect candour, I wish that you were a full 42 and more than unusually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature, yet modern. No less than ancient history supplies us with many of the most painful examples of what I refer to. If it were not so, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolen. Did you say Ernest?
Yes.
Oh, but it's not Mr. Ernest Worthing who's my guardian. It's his brother, his elder brother.
Oh, Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a long time.
Oh, that accounts for it then. And now that I think of it, I have never heard of any man mention his brother. Oh, Cecily, you've lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost quite anxious. Would have been terrible if a cloud had come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
Dearest Gwendolen, there is no reason why I should make a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
Darling Cecily, I fear there must be some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
I'm afraid you must be under some misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
Certainly very curious when he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. I never travel without my diary. I find one should always have something sensational to read whilst on the train. I'm so sorry, dear Cecily, if it isn't any disappointment to you, but I'm afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolen, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish, but I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor boy has found himself in any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have got himself into, I will never approach him after we're married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time for wearing this shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I'm very pleased to say that I have never seen a spade. It's obvious that our social spheres are widely different.
Shall I lay tea here as usual, miss?
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills, quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? Oh no, I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that is why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden, this is Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Personally, I cannot understand how anybody survives in the country. If anybody owes anybody, does. The country has always bored me to death.
That is what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Cake is rarely seen at the best households nowadays. You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my nature and the extraordinary sweetness of my disposition. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I first saw you, I distrusted you. I found you false, deceitful, and I am never deceived in matters such as these. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighbourhood.
Ernest, my own, a moment! May you please tell me, are you engaged to be married to this young lady here?
Dear little Cecily, of course not. What could have put such an idea in your pretty little head?
Thank you, you may.
I fear there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arms are present round your waist is my guardian, Mr. Jack Worthing.
I beg your pardon.
It's Uncle Jack.
Jack!
Here is Ernest.
My own love!
A moment, Ernest. May I ask you, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Who could hate us, Gwendolen?
I mean to Gwendolen.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea in your pretty little head?
You may.
Oh, I felt that there must be some slight error. The man who is currently embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncreiff.
Algernon Moncreiff. Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Oh.
Are you really called Jack?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name really is Jack. It has been Jack for years.
Gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
Oh, my poor wounded sister.
My sweet wronged Gwendolen.
Oh, you will call his sister, will you not?
There is just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
Oh, an admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there's just one question I would like to be allowed to put to you. Where is your brother Ernest? You are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is of some vital importance that you tell us where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolen, Cecily, it's very awkward for me to be forced to speak the truth. In fact, this is the first time in my life that I've ever been reduced to such an awkward position. And I'm really quite experienced in doing anything of the kind. However, I will tell you frankly, I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. In fact, I have no brother in the history of my entire life, and I have no intention of having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Not even of any kind?
None, not even of any kind.
I'm afraid it is clear that neither of us are engaged to be married to anyone, Cecily.
It's not a very pleasant position for a young girl suddenly to find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
This ghastly state of affairs is what you call bumbling, I suppose.
Yes, and a very perfect bunbury it is. The most wonderful bunbury I've ever had in my life.
Well, one small consolation I have in this whole wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run down into the country quite so often as you used to, dear Algie. And a very good thing too.
Well, your brother is a little off colour, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear to London quite so frequently as your wicked custom was. Not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I must say that you're taking in a sweet, innocent, guileless girl like that is quite inexcusable, to say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no possible defence at all for you deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolen, that is all. I love her.
Well, I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There is certainly no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
I don't think there's much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax ever being united.
It's no business of yours.
Well, if it were my business, I wouldn't speak of it.
How can you sit there calmly eating muffins when we are in this terrible mess? You seem to me perfectly heartless.
Well, I can hardly eat muffins in an agitated manner. Muffins would probably get on my cuffs.
I say it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all, under the circumstances.
When I am in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, that is no reason why you should eat them all in that greedy way.
Jack, why do you have some tea cake? I don't like tea.
Good heavens, I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
But you just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless of you under the circumstances. That is a very different thing.
Well, that may be, but the muffins are the same.
Algie, I wish to goodness you would go. Leave the muffins behind.
You can't possibly ask me to go without having any supper. No one ever goes without their supper, it's absurd. Apart from vegetarian. Besides, I just made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened under the name of Earnest.
I've just made arrangements myself with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:30. And naturally I will take the name of Earnest. We can't both be christened Earnest. Besides, there's no evidence that I have ever been christened before. Matter is entirely different in your case. You have been christened a dozen times, I imagine, right
Quite
now.
so I know my constitution can stand it. Might make you very unwell. can hardly have forgotten that someone very closely connected with you was very nearly carried off in Paris with a severe chill.
Yes, but you said yourself, a severe chill is not hereditary.
It used to be, I know. But I dare say it is now. Science is always making wonderful improvements in things.
Oh, that is nonsense. You are always talking nonsense.
Jack, you had the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't. I told you I was particularly fond of muffins.
But I hate everything else. Tea cake, cake, sandwich.
Tea cake? Why on earth do you serve tea cake up to your desk? What ideas do you have of hospitality?
Algernon, I've asked you to go. I've already asked you to go once. I don't want to have to do it again. Why don't you go?
Well, because I've not quite finished my tea yet. And there's still one muffin left.
I'm a young girl, and I've just come over from the town where they do things big. And amongst the boys I found a lover, and now I've found a lover. Well, I don't care a fig. The boy I love is up in the gallery. The boy I love is looking down at me. And there he is, can't you see, waving his handkerchief as merry as a robin who sits in the tree. The boy that I love, they call him a cobbler, but he's not a cobbler. Please allow me to state, for Ernest is a tradesman, and he works in the borough, where they sole and kneel them while you wait. The boy I love is up in the gallery. The boy I love is looking down at me. There he is, can't you see, waving his handkerchief as merry as a robin who sits in the trees. The fact that they did not follow us inside at once seems to me to show that they have some sense of shame left.
They've been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
They're looking at us. What effrontery.
They're approaching. That's very forward of them.
We will not be the first to speak.
No, let us preserve a dignified silence. That's the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasing effect. But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have just one question I would like to be allowed to put to you. Much depends on your answer.
Your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncreiff, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
So that I might have an opportunity of meeting you.
That certainly.
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't. But that doesn't affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer me for pretending to have a brother? Was it so that you may have an opportunity to come up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the gravest doubts upon the subject, but I intend to crush them. Now is not the time for German scepticism. Their explanations appear to be satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthing's. That to me seems to have the stamp of truth upon it.
I'm more than content with what Mr. Moncreiff has said. His voice alone inspires one with absolute credulity.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes. I mean, no.
Yes, no, you are quite right. There are principles at stake that one cannot forget. But which of us will be the one to tell them? The task is not a pleasant one.
Could we not both speak at the same time?
Always speak at the same time as other people! Will you take the time from me?
Sir,
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our
What
Christian.
christening names?
Is that all?
We are going to be christened tomorrow afternoon.
What he said?
Me? You're willing to do this terrible thing?
I am.
To please me, you're ready to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
Darling!
Lady Bracknell! Lady Bracknell!
Gwendolen, what does this mean?
Nearly the time engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Sit down. Sit down immediately. Apprised, sir, of my daughter's flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of a small coin, I followed at once by luggage train. Her unfortunate father is under the impression she's attending a more than usually lengthy lecture of the University Extension Scheme. I do not propose to undeceive him. In fact, I've never undeceived him on any point. But, you must understand, all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease at once.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolen, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind, sir. And now, as to Algernon.
Yes, Aunt Buster.
Algernon, is this the house where your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
Oh, Bunbury, no. Bunbury doesn't live here. The Bunbury is somewhere else at present. In fact, Bunbury is dead.
When did Mr. Bunbury die? His death must have been very sudden.
No, I killed Bunbury this afternoon. Sorry, Bunbury died this afternoon.
Of what did he die?
Bunbury, he was, quite exploded.
Exploded? Is he the victim of a revolutionary outrage?
I mean, Bunbury was found out. The doctors found out that Bunbury could not live. That's what I mean. And so Bunbury died.
Seems to have extraordinary confidence in the opinion of his medical advisor. I'm glad he made up his mind to some course of action at last. And now that we are rid of this, Mr. Bunbury. Mr. Worthing. Who's that young lady whose hand my nephew was holding in a most unnecessary manner?
What does I know why you're whispering? That lady is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I am engaged to be married to Cecily.
I beg your pardon.
Mrs. Moncreiff and I are engaged to be married, Lady Bracknell.
Is there something peculiarly exciting in the air in this part of Hertfordshire? The number of engagements seems to be far above the national statistics laid out for that night. Mr. Worthing, why don't be kind to him? Is she related to any of the railway stations? I'm only asking. Until yesterday, I had no idea there was anybody whose family was originated in a terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Gervais Park, Dorking, Surrey, and the Sporran, Fifeshire, NB.
3 addresses. That inspires confidence. Even in tradesmen. What proof have I of their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court guides of the period. They are open to your inspection, Lady Bracknell. Miss Cardew's family solicitors are Messrs. Mark E. Markby and Markby.
Yes, very satisfactory.
Well, that is extremely kind of you. I have also in my possession, you will be pleased to hear, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, confirmation, and recovery from the German and English varieties of measles.
A life crowded with incident, I see. Well, the time draws near for our departure. Gwendolen, I just asked you. Has Miss Cardew any little fortune?
Oh, about £130,000 in the funds. That is all. Hi, Lady Bracknell. So delightful to see you as always.
£130,000. And in the funds. Come here, child. Let me look at you. You seem a very pretty child now that I look at you. Your dress is sadly simple, and your hair is as nature might have left it. But we can see all that. A really experienced French maid can make enormous difference in a very short space of time. And your profile has enormous social possibility. Algernon!
Yes, Aunt Buck.
Miss Cardew's profile has enormous social possibility.
Cecily is the sweetest, most charming, prettiest young girl I've ever seen in my life, and I don't care tuppence for social possibility.
Never talk disparagingly of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Now, let me tell you, Algernon has no money and only his debts to rely on. But I don't approve of mercenary marriages. I married Lord Bracknell. I had no money of any kind. But I never dreamt of allowing that to stand in my way. I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Buck.
You may kiss me if you can manage it with my hat. Oh. And you may call me Aunt Augusta from now on.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
By the way, I don't approve of long engagements. They give people the opportunity of finding out about each other. Which is never advisable.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I'm Miss Cardew's guardian, and she cannot marry until she becomes legally of age without my consent. And that consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds? Algernon is extraordinarily, ostentatiously eligible. He has nothing, but looks everything. What more could one desire?
It pains me very, very much to have to speak frankly to you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew. But the fact is, I do not approve of his moral character, even assuming it exists at all. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon, I think my pearls have snapped in the height of my passion. He's an Oxonian!
I'm afraid there can be no possible doubt upon the matter. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London, on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house under means of a false pretext of being my brother. Under an assumed name, he drank, I've just been informed by everyone's favourite butler, an entire pint bottle of my Perrier Jouet Brut 89, while I was especially reserving for myself, with all the room accommodated by me on the lack of muffins. To make matters worse, he succeeded in the course of the afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed for tea and devoured every single muffin, for not one reason. And what makes his conduct all the more marvellous is he knew perfectly well from the first that I have no brother, I've never had a brother, I don't intend to have a brother, not even of any kind. I distinctly told him so myself, only yesterday afternoon.
Well, I decided to completely overlook everything.
That is very generous of you, Lady Bracknell. However, my decision remains unalterable. I decline to give my consent.
How old are you, dear child?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
Quite right. Every woman should make some alteration to her age, otherwise it looks so calculating. 18, but admitting to 20. Well, it would not be long before you are out of the constraints of tutelage, so your guardian's consent is of no importance.
Beg your pardon for interrupting you again. The fact of the matter is, she does not come legally of age until she was 35.
fact, you know, 35. It's a very attractive age. Everybody wants to stay 35. Why, Lady
Dumbleton, Mother,
Dumbleton has been 35 ever since she arrived at 40. I see no reason why Cecily should not be more attractive at the age 35, and there'll be a vast accumulation of
Algie, could you wait for me till I was 35?
Yes, of course. You know I could, of course.
Yes. I have lost instinct to play it. Well, I couldn't wait till that time.
shocking. Well, since your ward has said she cannot wait, which seems to smack of impatience, I beg you to reconsider your decision, Mr. Worthy.
But my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with the lovely Gwendolen, I will most gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
This is grotesque. I cannot give permission. Out of the question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
That is not a fate that I wish for Gwendolen. Algernon can choose for himself. Come, dear, we have missed 5, if not 6 days.
Everything is quite ready for the christenings.
The christening, sir? Is that not somewhat premature?
Both these gentlemen have expressed an immediate desire for baptism.
The idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. Lord Bracknell would be very displeased if he knew that was how you're wasting your time and money.
Am I then to understand that there are to be no christenings at all this afternoon?
I don't think that, as things are now, Dr. Chasuble, there would be much practical benefit to either of us.
I'm grieved to hear such sentiments from you. But I will return to the church at once. In fact, I have just been informed by the pew opener that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Prism? What did you say, Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I'm on my way to join her.
Is this... What? Allow me to detain you. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated of ladies, and the very picture of respectability.
Must be the same person. What position does she hold in your household?
Well, I am a senator.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has for the last 3 years been Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
Must be the same person. Let her be sent for.
She approaches. She is nigh.
I was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Canon, having waited you there for an hour and 3/4.
Miss Prism! Where is that baby? 28 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, 104 up Grosvenor Street, in charge of perambulator, containing an infant of the male sex. You never returned. The perambulator was found, some weeks later, by the elaborate investigation of the Metropolitan Police in a remote corner of Bayswater. The baby was not there.
Don't forget about the manuscript, Mother.
Oh, the manuscript was in the perambulator. It contained a 3-volume novel of more than usually revolting sentimentality. But the baby was not there. Where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mention, a day which is forever branded in my memory, I intended to take the baby out in its perambulator, as usual. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag and the manuscript of a work of fiction that I had written in my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, for which I can never forgive myself, I placed the manuscript in the bassinet and the baby in the handbag.
Where did you deposit the handbag? It's a matter of no small importance to me. I insist. I not knowing where you deposited the handbag.
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
Which railway station?
Victoria. The Brighton line.
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwendolen, wait here for me.
Oh, if you're not too long, darling, I will wait for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
In families of high social class, coincidences are not supposed to occur.
Your guardian has a very emotional nature. It is stopped now.
Come to some conclusion.
Oh, the suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
Is this the handbag, Prism? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
Well, it seems to be mine. Yes, here is the injury it received from the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in my younger and happier days. Oh, and here on the lining is the stain caused by the explosion of a temperance beverage, an event that occurred in Leamington. And here on the lock are my initials. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I'm delighted to have it restored to me after all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than that handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes, Mother.
I am unmarried.
Unmarried. I do not deny that is a serious blow. After all, why should there be one law for men and one law for women?
Here.
Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there is some error. This is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me who I am?
The news I'm about to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncreiff, and consequently, Algernon's elder brother.
Algernon's elder brother? Then I have a brother after all. I always said I had a brother. Cecily, how could you have ever doubted that I had a brother? Dr. Chasuble, allow me to introduce my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolen, my poor unfortunate brother. Algie, you young scoundrel, you will have to treat me with more respect in the future. You have never behaved to me like a brother in your entire life.
Yes, well, you know, I was rather out of practice, wasn't I?
But what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you've become somebody else?
Good heavens, I'd quite forgotten that point. Your decision on the subject of my name is irrevocable?
Oh, I know it's changed, darling. Except in my affection.
Then the matter had better be cleared up at once. Aunt Augusta, a moment. At the time when I had been left in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could afford, including christening, had been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I was christened. That is settled. Now, what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Well, being the eldest son, you were naturally named after your father, the General.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot recall at the moment. I'm sure he had one. He was eccentric, but only in later life.
Algie, can you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
My dear fellow, we weren't even on speaking terms. Died before I was a year old.
His name would appear in the army.
The General was a man of peace except in his domestic life. But I'm sure his name appears in the military records.
I just so happen to be here. Historical records should have been my study for the last 40 years. Malum, Max Bond, Magley, Migsby, Mobs, what ghastly names they all have. Migsby, there's a lot of Migsbys. Moncreiff. Captain, General, Lieutenant, we shouldn't leave out his military history, no. Christian names. Ernest John. Ernest. Well, I did tell you my name is Ernest. Gwendolen, would you believe it? It is.
I knew I had some reason for disliking the name.
Darling, I knew from the first that you could have no other name.
Gwendolen, it is a frightful shock to find out for the first time in one's life that one has been telling the truth the whole time.
Oh, of course I can, for I feel sure that you can change. Darling! Letitia, Frederick, at last!
Cecily, at last!
My nephew, you seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I have just realised for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.